All right, welcome to this week's edition of Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Jason Mackey, and alongside Coach Hand, we'll talk about last week. The Titans struggled a little bit. They fell 34-0 to Teal, and then we'll preview next week's game against the Frostburg State Bobcats. But it's going to be an exciting week here at Titan football. Once again, let's take a look now at last week with the Teal game. Teal starts the game on offense. Stephen Minton carries here, but loses 2 yards tackled by Ryan Shimura on the play. They would punt on the drive, but Teal gets the football back, and Daryl Satterfield right here completes this one to Brandon Chambers for 41 yards, but a penalty of false start on Teal nullifies the play. Then on 4th and 5, Matt Handhold getting his hand up in the air, knocking that one down. Still no points for Teal. Westminster would punt on their next drive. Teal with it back. This time Satterfield finds Brett Hellman for 19 yards, and they cap this drive off with a 24-yard scoring strike from Satterfield to Brandon Chambers. Teal is on top 7-0 at this point. Titans back on offense. Now 3rd and 10. JR drops back and finds Jordan Bellish for 32 yards. And a nice run after the catch here all the way down to the Teal 26-yard line. And it would set up a field goal attempt by Chris Castillo from 34 yards out, but Castillo misses it wide right. Still no points for the Titans. Teal on top 7-0. Back on offense now. Satterfield going up top, and he finds his man Mark Lascola. Lascola's first catch of the game, good for 78 yards and the TD. Teal on top 14-0. Westminster now back on offense. Check this little flip out here. Barley to Buggy for 35 yards to the Teal 25-yard line. But an illegal block would bring it back. Teal would get the football back, and Daryl Satterfield now back to pass, looking for Mark Lascola. He finds him 39 yards down to the Westminster 25. That was on a 3rd and 11, good for another Tomcat first down. And it would set up this Satterfield again, this time to Brandon Chambers. Chambers' second TD catch of the game. This one for 25 yards out. Teal leads 21-0. The Titans' only scoring chance in the first half, really incomplete, intended for Jake Buzzard. And the next possession, they would force Teal into a punting situation. High snap, McKinney handles it, throws an interception to Tanner Larson. No points there. Tomcats with it, and Satterfield is going to run for 17 yards to the Westminster 39, but Teal could not score. Score at the end of the first half, 21-0 Teal. All right, welcome back to Coach's Corner, and as you can see on the highlights, it was a little bit rainy, and Coach, me and you talked about it earlier in the season that weather usually not a factor, surface isn't a factor, but how much was a factor on Saturday?
It was definitely a factor. I mean, it was a different type of field, there's no doubt about that, but both teams have to play in the same surface, and it was a day where the surface kind of got bad and stayed bad. It didn't get horrible, and our field has the potential to these next several weeks if we continue to get rain, but it was a factor, but both teams have to play in it.
I know you and I talked about the difference between field turf and grass, obviously different than rain and dry.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
But I saw you down on the sidelines on that grass, and you're a little upset early on, talking about the teams not running any fancy patterns or anything like that. What was that about?
Well, I mean, coaching is one of those emotional professions. I mean, there's going to be highs and lows, and definitely, the frustration got to us a little bit in the sense of, if we're getting out schemed, that's one thing. We can fix the X's and O's, but when we're getting beat and we're not stepping up to the challenge. It's one thing to get beat on one play, but then to get beat on a similar play again, I don't have a whole lot of patience for, and that's where we need to improve.
Now, if we talk X's and O's, this is something that Coach Fusco mentioned to me. Trips to one side, single receiver to the other, tendency to roll to the trip side and then throw back to the single receiver. Is this something that you guys picked up as well?
Yeah, I mean that's something we've been waiting for all year. The way we play our coverages, and the way we have been able to get away with that, and we have a great short side corner in Reggie, and this is going to be a great bounce back week for him, and get more and more comfortable in that.
Yeah, if we switch over to the offense, Coach, the offensive line had him on the show last week, but it seems like they struggled a little bit. The JR didn't really have a whole lot of time back there.
Well, again, in the passing game, at times it's going to look like offensive line, but, so much goes into it. It's not just an offensive line thing as far as the passing game is concerned. It's where the backs are fitting in. It's the quarterback getting rid of the ball when he's supposed to be getting rid of the ball. You call it a 3-step drop because that's what it is. It's supposed to be 3 steps and throw, or a 5-step and throw. And protections aren't designed to last a lot longer than those 3 steps or 5 steps. And yeah, there were breakdowns, but it's a total team effort. Those 4 sacks, we have to improve on that as well.
So what you're saying is JR's not getting the football out of his hands fast enough, rather than the offensive line
it's both. It's everything. Everything comes into play. It's not just one person. And football is the greatest team sport that there is. And on any given one play, I could tell you what went wrong on that play. But overall, to make a generalization is one thing. If it were that simple, we'd be able to cure it a lot faster.
Now, one play you guys ran, we saw in the highlights, buzzer with the post over the middle. Now, you guys obviously switching it up, throwing over the middle a little bit, but you guys didn't go back to that. It seemed open.
Yeah, we, as far as the passing game is concerned, I mean, we could have and we will continue to take advantage of the flats and take advantage of some crossing routes, and we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to complete the play action post you saw in the highlights a little bit earlier. Those are plays that are going to get us right back in the game too.
As we switch over to defense, I talked to some of the guys this week. They mentioned that poor tackling was something on their mind that they wanted to correct. Is this something with the coaching staff that you guys worked on correcting too?
Yeah, I mean every week we work on tackling. I mean that's something, and that's just a matter of getting in position and having a desire to get the job done. And believe it or not, I mean I didn't feel that we were atrocious tacklers in Saturday's game. I mean if you look at it, I mean it was clearly a few big plays that got us and made the difference.
All right, well let's take a look now at the second half highlights. Titans get the kick to start it off here in the second half. Coyle's kick falls down to the Westminster 27, but Buggy can't field it. Matt Joy picks it up. Tomcats get it back on offense. Now Satterfield and McIntyre over the middle. That's good for 13 yards, but Satterfield right here, he's picked off by Greg Pfeiffer at the 2-yard line. Pfeiffer returns it all the way up to the 18, and the Titans get it back on offense. Barley to Kutzner now for 15 yards to the Westminster 37. And then later in the drive, Barley completes a pass to Sean Buggy on the swing pass. That's good for 8 yards to the Westminster 48-yard line. Buggy caught 5 on the day for 58 yards. But the Titans would still not be able to score on this drive, as on a 3rd and 7, Barley is sacked for a loss of 6 yards by Jeff Wagner. And the Tomcats now back on offense. Satterfield looking for Brandon Chambers, but Jason Fridley gets there a little bit early. Pass interference on the Titans. The drive sustained. Satterfield now finds Brandon Chambers 35 yards all the way to the Westminster 20-yard line, but the Tomcats would still not score on a 4th and 1. Minton looking to run, but Fridley stops him, and the Titans get it back. They still had to punt, though. On Teal's next possession, they go to Minton again. He only had 61 on the day, but 15 of them come right here to the Westminster 24-yard line, and it would set up the next Teal score. Daryl Satterfield for the 3rd time in the game to Brandon Chambers, this one for 8 yards, and Teal on top 28-0. And now on the ensuing kickoff, Coyle's kick falls down to the 18-yard line, and Buggy brings it out 30 yards to the Westminster 48. The Titans would still have to punt on the drive, though. On the Titans' next possession, Barley slips in the mud. Titans still can't get anything going. Tomcats back with it now. Dan Hess looking to run, but Shamora rips him down for a loss of 2 yards. But Dan Hess gets back at the Titan defense as he carries here for 22 yards to the Westminster 30-yard line, breaking all kinds of tackles, eventually brought down by Eric Brown. But the Tomcats would still not score on the drive, as on a 4th and 7, Billy Blankenship, he's sacked by Jordan Blinn. And the Tomcats, like I said, not able to score. Titans with it back now, but Brett Myers fumbles the snap, and the Tomcats get it back, and they will put one in before the end of the game. Jeremiah Conley from 10 yards out, he will score, and the Tomcats go on top 34-0. On the Titans' next possession, Myers will find Matt Knight for 23 yards to the Teal 21-yard line, but too little, too late as the Titans fall 34-0 to Teal. Welcome back to Coach's Corner, and as you saw in the highlights, Steve Minton, someone we expected to have a huge game, only 17 carries for 61 yards. And Coach, do you think maybe you spent a little too much time preparing for Minton and not enough for Satterfield and Chambers? No, we prepare equally for all of
opponents that we're going against, all the different phases of the game. I mean, we basically what we do in preparation, and there's no rocket science to it. I mean, if a team is 50% run and 50% pass, we spend 50% of the time on defending a run and 50% defending a pass, and the team we're playing this coming week is 50-50, and we'll do the same thing as well.
Now, preparing for that team this week, you guys had a little altered practice schedule. I understand you had to be down in the gym.
Mm-hmm. We were down in a gym, and it was supposed to be closed. How did you get in? I'm just kidding.
No, I was walking through. I was trying to get in there for baseball.
I was just teasing you. But we just felt that going out on Tuesday would have just tore the practice fields up a little bit too much for the rest of the week. Not necessarily that we wouldn't have been able to get enough done outside on Tuesday, but we just felt that it would tear the fields up for the rest of the week, and we wanted to save them.
Now, preparing for the game, obviously, you guys are going to work on the running game. I think only like 3 yards or something in the last game, but certainly you guys -3.
Mm-hmm.
You guys focus on that a lot, I'm sure.
Definitely, and that's something that we have not let our guard down at all about, and we just, it comes down to our having the desire to get the job done. And again, it's a team thing. It's, against Teal, they were able to play with 7 guys in the box, and us not being able to get that 7th defender out of the box through some of our calls didn't help us.
Now, one of the guys, he's actually our player interview this week, but always on the highlights, it seems like, Ryan Chimura, senior defensive tackle. He's really having an excellent season.
He is. He's definitely stepping up to the challenge and plays hard and really doing a nice job as far as fitting into the scheme of things. And he sometimes, and he'll probably admit to it, sometimes he has to be told in the huddle what direction to go. But I tell you, when he decides he's going a place, he goes a place full speed, and he does his best to play within the scheme, which is so important at defensive line, because you can have freelancers and they'll just can turn a deep defense upside down.
And you talk about what direction you want to go, and obviously the team is looking to go in a different direction, but the teams you guys played, 25-4, I think, is the combined record. I was talking with Joe Onderico about that. Now, what's that say about the competition you've played, and now in the upcoming weeks, the teams you're going to play with, the record's obviously not as good?
Well, I mean, it says that we've played some very good people, obviously, 25-4, and we've played hard, and I don't get too caught up in that. I mean, there are coaches out there that'll, make excuses and say things like that. I know the guys have never heard me say anything about that. When we go out every week, we're going out to win the game, whether it's against Frostburg or Frostburg is the only game we're worried about right now.
Okay. All right. Well, that does it for our interview portion. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Steve Brink's Pack Report after this on Coach's Corner.
3 o'clock.
What is he looking at?
Oh, it's so obvious. Captain Obvious has scored again. Open your window. Say something.
Oh, he's really gonna down.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Thank you. Honey, finish up. Come on, we gotta go.
Ew.
What's wrong?
Something's on my glass.
See. Oh, it's lipstick. Excuse me, ma'am. Could we just have a new glass, please? This one's dirty. Thank you.
Mom.
Honey, I don't want you to get sick. I don't know what's on that glass.
Oh, have me one too.
You want a soap to be in?
Yeah.
There you go. There's some honey right here, too.
At Westminster College. Westminster offers an educational experience that is second to none. We've been exceeding students' expectations for 150 years. Westminster combines the prestige of a national liberal arts college with the personal attention you deserve. Westminster is a national leader in graduation rate performance and is the most affordable national liberal arts college in Pennsylvania. Visit Westminster's beautiful 300-acre campus to experience an ideal learning environment. Succeed at Westminster College.
Welcome back to Coach's Corner, everyone. I'm Steve Brink, and I'm here to bring you the Week 8 edition of the Pack Report. Let's get things started by taking a look at the overall standings. Teal is still on top and unbeaten at 7-0, followed by W&J at 7-1, Thomas More at 5-2. Westminster and Waynesburg are tied for 4th at 3-4, followed by Grove City and Bethany. But now on to what really matters, and that is the conference standings. Teal and Thomas More are both unbeaten, and yes, they do play each other this weekend, but we'll talk about that game in just a little bit. W&J is in 3rd at 3-1. Grove City is in 4th at 2-3. Westminster and Waynesburg are tied again at 1-3, and Bethany has clinched last place with an 0-6 conference mark. Well, now we got to take a look at what happened around the pack last week, and we're going to start with the only non-conference matchup from last weekend. The Thomas More Saints improved to 5-2 as they beat up on Anderson College, winning 38-14. Saints cornerback Chris Willis picked off his 6th pass of the season, which puts him 1 interception away from the single school record of 7. Teal improved to 5-0 in conference play as they shut out Westminster in New Wilmington Saturday. Teal held the Titans to -3 rushing yards and only 4 first downs. Senior quarterback Daryl Satterfield threw for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns in the win. Grove City's Ken Rowdybush scored from 1 yard out late in the 4th quarter to give the Wolverines a 7-6 conference win over Waynesburg. Defensive end Steve Weary blocked an extra point in the 1st quarter to hold the Waynesburg lead to 6-0, and then safety Aaron Margot blocked a punt late in the 4th quarter, which was returned to the 1 yard line to help set up Grove City's only touchdown of the game. And finally, the Bethany Bison clinched last place in conference as they were shut out by Washington and Jefferson Saturday by a score of 63-0. The Presidents put up over 650 yards of total offense. Quarterback Chris Edwards threw for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 11 passing attempts, which is a pretty good average. Well, now it's time to acknowledge the PAC Offensive and Defensive Players of the Week, and we'll start with the offense. Teal wide receiver Brandon Chambers gets the nod this week. The senior from Farrell High School caught 9 passes for 140 yards and 3 touchdowns. Chambers now has 25 career touchdown receptions, which ranks 2nd all-time at Teal. And now flipping sides to the defense, Waynesburg cornerback Andy Tenney receives the award this week. The senior out of Alderdice High School in the Pittsburgh City League set a new Waynesburg single-game record by recording 20 tackles in the loss to Grove City. Well, here on the Pack Report, we'd like to send out some love to 5 other top performers around the conference, and here's this week's edition of the Fantastic 5. Coming in at number 5, we have Thomas More linebacker Mark Carlisle. Carlisle had a career-high 14 solo tackles while finishing with 17 total stops in the Saints' win over Anderson. Number 4, we have Waynesburg running back Ryan Abels. Despite losing to Grove City, Abels still managed 125 yards on 16 carries while also adding a score. Number 3, we have W&J wideout John Miller. Miller had only 3 catches in the game, but 2 went for scores as he averaged 50 yards per reception by posting 150 receiving yards. Teal quarterback Daryl Satterfield takes the number 2 spot. Satterfield threw for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of which went to wideout Brandon Chambers. And finally, at number 1, we have W&J running back R.J. Zitzelberger. Zitzelberger had 4 touchdowns and 122 yards rushing on 20 carries in the President's win over Bethany. Now it's time to take a look at what's happening around the PAC this weekend, and we're going to start with the Bethany Bison. Bethany hosts Chicago College. Bethany wideout T.J. Parker had 115 yards receiving and 1 touchdown in last year's meeting. Westminster takes a break from conference play as the Titans host Frostburg State this weekend. This is the 11th meeting between the 2 schools, with Westminster losing only once. The Titans won last year's game by a score of 25-13. Grove City hits the road Saturday as they travel to Alfred. Alfred won at Grove City last year, but the Wolverines committed 6 turnovers in that game. The road team in this series has won 6 out of the last 9 meetings. And now we have a couple of conference games to talk about this weekend, and we'll start with the Washington and Jefferson Presidents traveling down I-79 to take on Waynesburg. The last 2 years, this game has been the one that has decided the conference champion. W&J won last year's meeting 35-30 in Washington, while the Yellow Jackets won 2 years ago at home to claim the PAC title. And finally, Thomas More travels to Greenville, PA to take on the Teal Tomcats in the game of the year in the PAC. If Teal wins, they clinch their first outright title since 1972, back when Coach Jack Leipheimer was a student at Teal. For Thomas More, if they win, they clinch at least a share of the conference crown in their inaugural season here in the PAC. And then, of course, they have a shot to win the outright title the following week by beating W&J at home. Before we go, we got to take a quick look at the updated standings for the NFL Pick'em Challenge. I went 4-2 last week and fell yet another game behind. That's because Jason went 5-1 to take the lead away from Coach Han. But Coach isn't that worried, though. He said that his setback last week just sets him up for an even bigger comeback this week. We'll have to see, Coach. But if we take a look at this week's games, you'll see that Jacksonville is back on the schedule. And for the record, Jason did pick the Jags to win, so if you're a betting man, please go out and pick St. Louis to cover the spread, because trust me, it's a lock. That does it for this week's edition of the Pack Report. Let's kick it back to Brentwood's finest, Jason Mackey.
All right, thank you, Steve. I'm back here with defensive tackle from Mohawk, Ryan Shimura. And Ryan, I mean, you're a veteran of this show. You've been around a while. You've got to be excited for this episode.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, this season, obviously, you've put up a lot of numbers. We talked about it off air. You know, that's really unique for a nose guard.
Yeah, a lot of it, like the new system with playing kind of a modified 3-4 compared to the old defense and the 4-2 that we ran last year. And it just gives a lot of opportunities because people moving all over the place. I mean, makes a lot of opportunities for guys to step up and make plays.
Now, you guys last week gave up 34 unanswered points. You know, from a team standpoint, what happened in this game?
A lot of things. I mean, we got to play against adversity and the momentum, and just sometimes a lot of it's just, you know, stepping up, making that big play, doing a little bit more than what you're expected, you know, and giving us back the momentum, you know. That was a big thing, just the big plays that really killed us.
See if we can change some of those big plays this week. But me and you also talked earlier this week about Frostburg State. Now, what's their offensive line like, and how do you feel that you match up against their offensive line?
They're pretty big across the board. They returned 4 or 5 starters. Their new starter would be the center, which is kind of nice. That's who I'm going to be facing the majority of the time. Big. They got their right tackle's real big. Boca, he's like 6'4", 350. I mean, he's a big guy, but I mean, we're going to try to use our speed in some things, you know, get around them.
Well, one guy that's pretty fast on their defense, Colbert, their defensive end, I mean, he's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's, I was checking out his stats the other day. He's having a heck of a year this year with, I think he has 16.5 sacks or something in the games they played. I mean, our offensive line is going to have a good job this week.
Now, you as a defensive tackle, him as a defensive end, obviously, you two aren't going to be going face-to-face. But is there any added pressure knowing that, you know, in the stat sheets you two are going to be compared?
Nah, I mean, stats, stats don't matter to me as long as we get a win. And just not really. I mean, you can compare us, but defensive tackles, that's like oranges and apples. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, you know, you guys are 0-4 at home, obviously looking to get a win. Do you feel any added pressure to get a win at home before the end of your senior year?
Yeah, I mean, we've always won at home. I mean, we're going to have some bumps and whatnot this year, but we have to get one at home for the seniors, just for in the program. I mean, we got to get one. Hopefully, you know, we'll get it this week.
Trying to get that win this week. Now, what did you say as a senior captain this week to all your guys to try to get them motivated and get them ready to go this weekend for Frostburg State?
I'm really not a big talker. I mean, I say subtle things every now and then, but I mean, we just got to be focused, you know, not throw in a towel. I mean, especially us guys that are seniors. I mean, we got 3 games left. I mean, this last time that we're ever going to play together, and like our senior group, it's a pretty tight-knit group. I mean, we've been here through everything since freshman year, so I mean, you know, we got to play, you know, as a team and, you know, have something to remember.
All right, well, that does it for our player interview portion. Thank you very much, Ryan. We're going to take a short break, and Coach and I will be back to talk about the Frostburg State Bobcats next on Coach's Corner.
There's a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
The Lawrence County Humane Society believes in the safety of spaying and neutering your animals. Spaying and neutering can have many long-term benefits.
We at the Lawrence County Humane Society believe that all animals should be spayed or neutered. Many reasons why, but the biggest reason is that they will be a happier, healthier pet. Also, it alleviates the overpopulation problem.
Getting your animals spayed and neutered is one huge step in making sure that more animals are healthy and find loving homes.
All right, welcome back to Coach's Corner. Jason Mackey alongside Coach Hand to talk about this week's game. The Frostburg State Bobcats, quite an impressive team, Coach, but their defensive end is really the strength of this team. Colbert, Ryan and I talked about him. What's your game plan for controlling him?
Well, he's a good player. There's no getting around that. And in our pass protection schemes, we certainly have to make sure that he's accounted for from the offensive line standpoint, and hopefully he's going to have secondary support from the running backs.
You talk about pass protection schemes. Frostburg State, I think, has given up 16 sacks on the season. Are you looking forward for your defense to get a chance at trying to sack Jimmy Ward?
It would be nice. I mean, that would definitely help things. And on a on a field that's going to be a little bit muddy, it's one of those games. And I tell the defense that whatever's working, we're going to stick with. And sometimes on those fields, you really have a good feel that you can really get after people and stay after them. Sometimes it's you're not able to get as good of a pass rush, and you have to drop 8 people or do some different things. So we'll see how the game goes. But I know we have a good defensive line, and I know that they have some guys that we can get around on the offensive line.
Now, if we take a couple steps back and look at their running back position, Mike Kitchen graduated last year. He was their feature back, and Shanorm Young, I believe, is the kid stepping in there. What's he look like on film so far?
Well, Shanorm is a good back, and his backup, Ferris. His name is Ferris Bruton, who is a very good back. He's just recently played in the last 2 games, and has some really good wheels. Shanorm is a solid back, shifty back, and Ferris Bruton is more of a shifty scat back.
What do you mean by scat back?
Just a lighter guy that's going to be able to, if he does break through the line, he's fast in the open field.
Now, if we look at their passing game, obviously we faced a balanced Teal team from 2 weeks ago. Or last week, they threw the ball well. Frostburg State, did they throw the ball equally as well with Jimmy Ward and I believe Fred House and Changuris on the outside?
They throw the ball well. They do some nice things in their passing game. They're fairly predictable in their passing game as far as the routes that they're going to run, but they run very good routes, and they're very disciplined, and their receivers do a nice job of getting open.
I was looking at Ward's stats, and I think he's only completed like 45%. Does the low completion rate kind of strike a bell with you or anything like that?
No, when you're throwing the ball as deep as he's thrown the ball, as often as he's thrown the ball, that's not a horrible percentage at all. He's a good quarterback.
So you guys are 0-4 at home, obviously, like I talked about with Ryan. Are you feeling any added pressure to get a win at home? Is this something that I just keep blowing out of proportion?
I don't know if anybody is blowing it out of proportion. I mean, always you want to get a win at home. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Whether we were 4-0 at home or 0-4, it's always nice to win at home. You hope you have a little bigger crowd, and you hope that after the game everyone's in a good mood and hopefully going out and having a good time and enjoying the Titan victory.
All right, well, we will see if the Titans can get that victory. Last year they topped Thomas More 25-13, as Steve said, or Frostburg State rather, as Steve said. But that does it for Coach's Corner. Thanks for watching on the Westminster Cable Network.